In the shadow of mighty empires, where golden domes shimmered over ancient cities and mountain winds carried the clash of steel, a forgotten war raged for centuries. This is not just a story of battles and borders, this is the story of faith, of identity, of a relentless struggle for survival between the Byzantine Empire and the rising power of the Bulgarian kingdoms. From the thunder of hooves across the Danube to the echo of Greek fire along stone walls, witness a war that shaped the fate of Eastern Europe, and still whispers through its ruins today. The wind howled across the Balkans as twilight settled on a restless land. Smoke curled above distant hills where torches flickered like uneasy stars, and in the shadow of the Rhodope Mountains, drums began to sound. This was no ordinary night. This was a night before history took a turn, before empires clashed, and kings gambled with the fate of nations. The year was 1014, and the great battle at Kleidion was drawing near. But the story did not begin there. Centuries earlier, in 680 AD, the Bulgars, once nomadic warriors riding under the banners of the steppe, crossed the Danube and found themselves facing the mighty Eastern Roman Empire. They came not to raid, but to settle. Led by Khan Asparuh, their eyes were set on the lands beyond the river. The Byzantines, confident in their legions, dismissed them as another wave to repel. But this wave did not recede. It roared. Asparuh's warriors moved like shadows, agile and ruthless. The Byzantine army, stretched and unprepared, fell into disarray as ambushes tore through its ranks. Near the Danube Delta, under a blood-red sky, the Byzantines suffered a crushing defeat. Out of that chaos, a new state was born, the First Bulgarian Empire, forged not in treaties, but in fire and defiance. For centuries, the tides of power ebbed and flowed. One generation saw victories, another defeat. Emperors rose in Constantinople and were buried before the ink dried on their decrees. The empire's golden domes stood tall, but their foundations trembled under the weight of war. It was during the reign of Emperor Basil II, known to history as the Bulgar Slayer, that the war would reach its darkest crescendo. Basil, born into war, raised by intrigue, and hardened by betrayal, vowed to end the Bulgarian resistance once and for all. But his adversary, Tsar Samuel of Bulgaria, was no ordinary king. He was a mountain lion, cunning, fierce, and beloved by his people. Samuel commanded a kingdom shaped by hardship. His men knew the mountain passes like the backs of their weathered hands. They struck quickly, vanished into forests, and returned with the fury of those defending their homes. For decades, Samuel defied the Byzantine eagle. Cities fell and were rebuilt. Lives were lost and remembered. The war was not about glory, it was about survival. Then came Kleidion, July 29, 1014. The narrow pass became a funnel of death. Samuel's forces fortified the gorge with wooden palisades and spikes, hoping to block the Byzantine advance. But Basil, patient and methodical, outflanked them. He sent detachments over the mountain ridges, silent as ghosts. When the Bulgarians realized they were surrounded, it was too late. The slaughter was merciless. Thousands of Bulgarian soldiers were captured. But what came next became legend. Basil, seeking to break Samuel's spirit, ordered that 99 out of every 100 prisoners be blinded, leaving one man in each group with a single eye to guide the rest home. Over 14,000 broken men stumbled back to their Tsar's camp. When Samuel beheld the scene, his heart failed him. Within 2 months, he was dead. The Byzantines had won a battle, but they never fully extinguished the Bulgarian flame. The wars dragged on through generations. The Second Bulgarian Empire rose in 1185 under Asen and Peter, sparked by a tax revolt and driven by the spirit of independence. Like their ancestors, they fought with fury. They reclaimed land, sacked cities, and humiliated emperors. One of their greatest victories came at Adrianople in 1205, where Khan Asparuh crushed the Latin Crusaders and captured their emperor, Baldwin of Flanders. Yet time wore both empires down. The Byzantines bled from within, torn by civil wars and foreign threats. The Bulgarians, too, fragmented, weakened by internal strife and the Mongol threat from the east. By the 14th century, a new force loomed on the horizon, the Ottomans. Like a gathering storm, they swept across Anatolia and into the Balkans. The final chapters of the Byzantine-Bulgarian conflict were not marked by decisive battles but by exhaustion. Cities were traded like currency. Allegiances shifted. Families fled. Faith remained the only anchor in a world unraveling. And then, in 1355, with the death of Tsar Ivan Alexander approaching and Constantinople on the brink, it became clear, the world had changed. What began as a war between empires had become a struggle to preserve identity, culture, and memory. The scars of the Byzantine-Bulgarian Wars remain carved into the mountains, whispered in the songs of shepherds, and etched into the ruins of forgotten fortresses. It was a war not merely of borders, but of souls, a long, brutal dance between two civilizations whose legacies still echo in the stones of Sofia and the marble of Hagia Sophia. The banners have long since fallen. The warriors have turned to dust. But their stories live on, waiting, as always, to be remembered. The Byzantine-Bulgarian Wars were more than a series of military campaigns. They were a brutal test of endurance, a saga of betrayal and bravery, of emperors blinded by ambition and kings fighting with the soul of a people behind them. And though the empires fell, their echoes remain, in our languages, in our lands, and in the legends carved into stone and memory. If this story moved you, like and share it so more people can rediscover the hidden chronicles of our world. And tell us in the comments, whose legacy do you think truly lived on?